Finding Dory is the highly anticipated sequel to Finding Nemo. Finding Nemo was that movie that essentially defined a generation, I would call it. I'd say Finding Nemo was the kind of that movie that every time you went on a field trip, or every single time that there was a substitute teacher, Finding Nemo was on. I even had to do a marine science project on Finding Nemo. And Finding Nemo is that thing that, like, when I go to Disney World, I always make sure I do the Finding Nemo ride. Always, regardless who I'm with, it defined my generation's childhood. Pretty much people who were born in the early 90s, or just parents of kids like that, or just people who loved Pixar during Pixar's like heyday. Getting this review out pretty late, I wanted to really like muster over and really think about my opinions on this film. I didn't want to go out and just shit talk, or I didn't want to go out and just fanboy. I wanted to like have a definitive, like, this is what I think about the movie. I've seen the movie twice now. I saw it when it first came out, and then I watched it a couple days later. Now I'm ready to talk, and I can't wait to discuss this film because it is an interesting one. It's the first viewing. I really like the original stuff, the stuff that is completely different from Finding Nemo. I will say this. This is what I like about the movie too. It is not anything like Finding Nemo. And I'm happy that it's not anything like Finding Nemo. I'm glad that we didn't get the same, story. We do have these 10 minutes of nostalgia, though. At the very beginning of the movie, there's probably about 10 minutes where you see all the characters, and it gets very nostalgic for a bit, and it's pretty much just a rehash of all the stuff that we saw from Finding Nemo. This viewing, I felt like this was kind of forced. My second viewing of this, I actually ended up liking it. It feels kind of natural, honestly, and it just kind of moves along at a really cool pace. It's hard to kind of hate or just destroy or tear apart any of that stuff because it feels natural. It feels like it should be there. Second viewing of this, though, it's really the new stuff where I have any issue with this film. And my only real issue with this movie is emotion. It doesn't hit that same level that Finding Nemo does. In this film really comes close to that Dory scene where she's like talking to Marlin at the end of the Finding Nemo, where it's just like, I remember you scene. Like, nothing in this movie ever becomes like that dramatic. All the best emotional scenes in this movie come from Marlin and Dory. I feel like they're the power in this movie. They're what really works with this movie. This movie works extremely well when it's Marlin and Dory. My problem is the parents. You see, with Finding Nemo, what I think works really with Finding Nemo is because you can really tell that Marlin needs Nemo. Marlin, like, to Nemo is everything to him. If he lost Nemo, there's no point in, like, going on. Nemo was his life. With Dory, it just more feels like to find her family at the end of this movie, it feels more like a want more than a necessity. Like, she knows that she loved her parents at one point, and she knows that she needs a family. But she doesn't technically realize at that point that Marlin and Nemo really are her family. His family, too, because she goes off to find that family. But that's really where the strong point is. I don't feel the necessity or the love for Dory, like, for her family. I feel like that was actually the weakest point in the movie, and that was the main point of the movie. So the emotions of this film don't carry on as well as it does in Finding Nemo. Also, this movie's kind of dark. Like, not like it's a depressing plot line or anything like that. More like visually. It takes place in a lot of, like, dark locations, like in Pipes, inside this Marine Institute, which is just a bunch of, like, kelp in dark shadows, and there's a lot of scenes like that. The final thing with like Finding Dory is this movie just plays itself very safe. I wanted to see more of a ballsy approach after seeing movies like Zootopia or even Pixar's latest films like The Good Dinosaur and Inside Out. I felt like those movies were more ballsy. Those movies took more risks. I feel like they played it really safe with Finding Dory, and that's cool, but I wanted more, and I'm probably going to put this movie on my most disappointing list at the end of the year. But that's not a bad thing, because this movie is actually pretty good, and if this is one of my most disappointing films of the year, I think we're going to have a good year. I don't want anyone to think I hate this movie. I really do like this movie. I've seen it twice. I actually, this is a really good animation. I just feel like we've gotten better animated films this year, as in Zootopia, and I consider Jungle Book an animated film, too, because there's only one human character. I consider that better than this movie. I consider this in the line of Monsters University. I like Monsters University a little bit more than this movie. I find like that movie is just a little bit more fun than this movie is. But this is also a good adventure too. Dory works. She can carry her own film. It just doesn't have the strength of Finding Nemo, and it doesn't have the strength of past Pixar films like Toy Story. In the end, Finding Dory is it's a pretty good time, and I think you'll have some fun watching it. I'm going to give Finding Dory 7 Just Keep Swimmins out of 10. And if you like my reviews and you want to see more, subscribe, like, and remember, a review from Ryan J will brighten your day.